Dear delegates, if we may, could we please, before lunch, look at two agenda items, items 17 and 18. We'll begin with agenda item 17 on our program of work, draft code of conduct for the nomination of the regional director. Kindly turn to document AFR/RC68/14. I would ask Mrs. Pamela Tramé-Avognon, Coordinator for External Relations, Partnerships and Governing Bodies, to present the document.
Thank you very much. Honourable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Secretariat, I have the privilege to introduce document AFR RC68/14 with the title Draft Code of Conduct for the Nomination of the Regional Director. The purpose of the document is to improve the overall process for the nomination of the Regional Director, including by promoting an equitable and transparent process. The 65th World Health Assembly endorsed proposals for increasing harmonization across regional committees in relation to the nomination of regional directors. This code of conduct is derived from the code of conduct of the nomination of the Director General, which was approved by the World Health Assembly in Resolution WHA 66.18 as a non-binding statement of electoral practices. Subsequently, WHO Executive Board conducted an evaluation of the election of the Director General in January 2018, and some issues raised have been taken into consideration into the development of this code. It is important to mention that all other regional committees have adapted the code in line with their specific circumstances. This document was also reviewed extensively by the Progress Subcommittee during their meeting in Brazzaville. The code aims to promote an open, equitable and transparent process for the nomination of the regional director. It proposes general and specific requirements that member states are encouraged to adhere to during the nomination process. The code of conduct is not binding, but member states and candidates are expected to abide by its content. The nomination process is guided primarily by the rules of procedure of the regional committee and the basic principles of equity, transparency, good faith, dignity, amongst others. In terms of the specific requirements, the document proposes guidelines for the submission of proposals, the electoral campaign, the nomination and handling of internal candidates. To standardize the submission and allow for easy comparisons, a standard form for curriculum vitae is also enclosed as Annex 1 to the document. In addition, the approval of the code would necessitate a minor amendment to Rule 52 of the Rules of Procedure of the Regional Committee, and proposed wording is provided in Annex 2 of the document. If you look at Annex 2 of the document, we are including the slight amendment is to include a sentence in which that states that the Director General shall attach the code of conduct for the nomination of the regional director and draw attention of the member states to the need to honor and adhere to the provisions set out in the code. Please note that there is a resolution AFR RC68 WP1 accompanying the document, which is in Annex 3. The adoption of the resolution will adopt the Code of Conduct, approve the standard form of the curriculum vitae, and also adopt the amendment of Rule 52.1 of the Rules of Procedure of the Regional Committee. We welcome the comments of the committee and hereby submit the draft Code of Conduct on the nomination of the Regional Director for review and adoption. Thank you very much.
Merci.
Thank you very much. Do the delegates have comments or observations to make? There hasn't been a significant change to the document.
Le Zimbabwe?
Zimbabwe.
C'est Zambia?
Zambia? Zambia.
Thank you,
se prépare,
Chair.
oui.
Is it Zambia or Zimbabwe?
Zimbabwe before and Zambia after.
Thank you very much. Zimbabwe really welcomes this document, which seeks to regularize the issue of the Code of Conduct, which we must distinguish between the Code of Conduct and the Rules of Procedure. This, we really just want to regularize. It has already been taken on board at the headquarters level. So it is really routinely going to be incorporated into what we need to do. But I think what is important is, as long as we have our elections next year that are non-controversial, that will be seen to be open, that will be seen to be transparent, it will be very easy to accept and legitimize the results of those elections. I would like to appeal that we hold our campaigns in a dignified way as professionals, and just make sure we watch out now that when we had these elections a few years ago, social media was not so prominent. Now that there's social media, let's really try to avoid being non-professional, being provocative, let's keep our professionalism intact as a health sector. And we hope that member states, when a candidate is not from your member state, the member states will allow other candidates to come to campaign in your country. This sometimes find people just obstructing that. We hope that the secret ballot will be maintained. It has helped us in the past. And I see for in this paper that really there's nothing very controversial. It's something that we just need to do. We have to do it in a proper way and encourage harmonious campaigns with no smearing and no scandals. And again, I must emphasize, this is a welcome development. A code of conduct is completely different from the rules of procedure. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Zambia.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Zambia welcomes and supports the draft code of conduct for the nomination of the regional director. At least the document provides for fairness, transparency, and justice in the nomination of the regional director. And in supporting the code of conduct, Zambia requests a further relook at some sections for the document. And those who are looking at the document now, I just want to refer you to page 1. Number 4, the last part where it says, is such that the code is not legally binding, but member states and candidates are expected to abide by its content. It may be, it already defeats the purpose of having the document if you, in the beginning, you throw it away. I think maybe we look at that sentence or modify it than saying it's not legally binding. We can find, I think, a better way of recasting that. Secondly, again, I draw you to page 2 on the responsibilities. Again, it's very well articulated in terms of what is expected from the member states and the candidates, but completely silent should it go the other way in terms of non-adherence to what is being proposed. So what sort of mediation mechanism, suppose one candidate is disadvantaged? So again, we're just suggesting that we relook at that so that there is some mediation in the spirit of fairness if what we are proposing is not adhered to. I think with those proposed amendments or looking at, Zambia supports the draft code of conduct. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tanzania.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Tanzania commends the Secretariat for bringing this important agenda at this moment to promote an open and transparent process of nominating the regional director of the WHO Africa region. We further appreciate the inclusion of member states nominating candidates for the post of regional director to consider disclosing agents or aid funding received for the campaign in order to ensure full transparency and mutual confidence among member states and the public at large. Chairperson, Tanzania is committed in implementing the Code of Conduct during the nomination of the regional director for the Africa region as set out in Rule 52 of the Rules of Procedure of the WHO Regional Committee for Africa. Chairperson, we take note of the action proposed in the framework and support the adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Botswana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Botswana, we note the spirit of the document, which is critical for any credible elections. But we, however, wish to know that we need to distinguish between perception and perceived conflict of interest, particularly where such interest is not defined. On that note, I take note of, I don't know whether it's clause or section 21, which talks to the internal candidates to say that we are quite aware that issues of ethics appeal to individuals' consciousness in distinguishing between what is right from wrong. Because as it says, that one would want to find out as to whether this conflict is so defined somewhere, or it remains for those who are the judges to determine whether there's a perceived conflict or that conflict does exist. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Otherwise, we support the Code of Conduct. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Malawi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for giving Malawi the floor. I've reviewed the document as presented and welcome and support the proposed amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Should there be no further requests from the floor from the delegates, I now give the floor to the Secretariat.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the support provided for the code and the commitments expressed by some member states to implementing the code. I would like to just refer to some specific questions and may ask a legal colleague to come in on one or two issues. Okay? I recognize Honourable Minister of Zimbabwe reiterating the point on the code in member states allowing candidates to campaign. And this is noted in the code. I would like to reassure the Minister the secret ballot will be maintained during the elections. The Zambia questioned para 4 and felt that it was defeating the purpose, and I'll ask a legal to respond to that. I don't know also if Zambia may have some language that it may. They don't. They do. Okay, great. So legal will respond to that. Also on the issue of mediation in terms of non-adherence to the code, and ask our legal colleague to also mention to respond to that. Tanzania, thank you for your commitment to the code, to implementing the code. And also Botswana, can I ask legal to also mention something on that, the whole issues around ethics and what areas, ways in which, but maybe I would want to say that if you look at the code, it also states that the Director General will make sure, paragraph 20, in terms of internal candidates, guidance will be issued from time to time by the Director General. So this, I hope, addresses your concern there. I believe we have covered all that, and I would kindly ask a legal colleague to comment and supplement that. Thank you. Mr. Chair, if that's okay with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just to clarify that, indeed, I fully understand the challenge raised by our colleagues from Zambia. Indeed, the wording is a bit tricky, and I just want to reiterate that indeed this sentence has been taken from other code of conduct adopted in other regions. But maybe a simple way to get away with this problem will be simply to remove the sentence, the part of the sentence which says that the code is legally binding, and just remain with the sentence to say, as such, member states and candidates are expected to abide by its content. That would avoid this odd sentence. And again, I fully support your view on this. On the comment made by distinguished delegate of Botswana, maybe just to reassure you that all services in HQ dealing with ethics, legal issues, or depending on the issue which will be raised, if there is a problem about the implementation of the code by candidates, this question will be referred or could be referred to HQ services and provide an answer about exactly how to address the problem. But it's a bit difficult to enter now into a discussion about any specific issue which can arise in definition. But we have a legal service and a dedicated service dealing with ethics and compliance, and other services in HQ we can advise on these issues if needed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Merci pour les clarifications.
Thank you very much for clarifying that.
Mesdames, Messieurs,
Ladies and gentlemen, dear delegates. Oh, Zambia. Please go ahead.
Thank you for giving me the floor again, Mr. President. I think that just one item still not addressed. I know in an unlikely event where we have non-adherence to the code of conduct, I raise the issue of what sort of arbitration mechanism Thank you.
Le secrétariat pour la clarification.
The Secretariat has the floor for clarification.
Thank you, Zambia, for the question. I think that although we've removed the terminology about not legally binding, it would be very difficult for the Secretariat to police what is happening and then to take action against a candidate or another candidate. So I think in the spirit of the document, what one would expect is that there would be a discussion and there would be an informal resolution to anything that transpired. I'm not sure that we would be in a position to put in place a formal arbitration mechanism. And I look to legal counsel in the event, Chair, through you, he would like to add supplement to that. Thank you.
I think my colleague addressed the issue correctly, so personally I have nothing to add.
Merci. Est-ce que la Zambie est...
Thank you. Zambia, are you satisfied?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear delegates, I think we can consider that the Regional Committee is ready to adopt the Code of Conduct for the nomination of the Regional Director. That's document AFR/RC68/14. As well as the amendment to Rule 52 of the Rules of Procedure, as well as Resolution AFR/RC68/WP1. And also, of course, in line with the comments made. It is so decided.
Chers délégués, comme
Dear delegates, as we had agreed, we will go straight to agenda item 18 before lunch. That is item 18, called Development of a Draft Global Action Plan on the Health of Refugees and Migrants. The Secretariat is telling me that the 70th World Health Assembly recommended that the DG identify the best practices, experiences and lessons with regards to the health of refugees and migrants in all regions, with the aim of contributing to a global action plan on the health of refugees and migrants, which will be considered for adoption by the 72nd World Health Assembly. In that regard, in order to make good on this recommendation, a document has been prepared and tabled for comments by the Regional Committee. We need to hear your observations and comments thereon. Please also note that our consideration is part of a wider consultation process. I will now give the floor to Dr. Prosper.
Mr. Chairman, Honorable Ministers, we are craving your indulgence. For 2 minutes, we need to locate our officer who is presenting that. We didn't expect the previous agenda item to move so fast, but you will be here in just my apologies on behalf of the Secretariat. We could exercise in the meantime, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Can we have some music? We could exercise in the meantime while getting the person in the room, if you don't mind. Am I allowed to do that, Mr. Chair?
Yes, you are.
March, right, to the right. To the left. Your right. To the left. Let's reach. Up. 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 Let's check our waist. Can we go down? Are you sure we'll be able to go up? Let's go down again. Can we go up? Thank you.
It's always underrated.
Prosper, please run.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Dr. Prosper. Welcome, please. Take floor.
Good afternoon, honorable ministers. On behalf of the Secretariat, I have the privilege to introduce document AFR/RC68/15 entitled Development of a Draft Global Action Plan on the Health of Refugees and Migrants. The purpose of this document is to consult the Member States on the development of the Draft Global Action Plan on the Health of Refugees and Migrants, which is an action plan that was requested by the 70th World Health Assembly in May 2017 per resolution WHA 70.15. Regarding the context, there is a global trend of increased migration and displacement due to conflict, persecution, environmental degradation, and change, with an estimated 763 million internal migrants, those who are migrants inside their own country of origin. In 2017, it was estimated that 258 million people, about 1 in every 30 people, lived outside their country of origin, which was an increase of almost 50% since the year 2000. According to UNHCR reports, by the end of 2017, some 68.5 million had been forcibly displaced as a result of persecution, conflict, or generalized violence, inclusive of an estimated 40 million internally displaced people and about 25.4 million refugees, the highest levels of human displacement ever. It is important to note that over half of the refugees are under the age of 18 years. The framework of priorities and guiding principles to promote the health of refugees and migrants, which was adopted by the 70th Health Assembly in a resolution WHA 70.15, serves as a foundation for the development of the draft Global Action Plan on the health of refugees and migrants. In that resolution, the Health Assembly urged the Member States to strengthen international cooperation on the health of refugees and migrants in line with the relevant paragraphs of the New York Declaration for Refugees and Migrants. The Secretariat then issued an online global call in August 2017 for contributions on evidence-based information, best practices, experiences, and lessons learned in addressing the health needs of refugees and migrants, and obtained their contributions until January 2018 from partners, from member states, and from other agencies, including civil society. This information is then now being used for the development of the Global Action Plan on the health of refugees and migrants. A consultation process has been established starting the 1st of August of this year until 28th November this year Following that, the draft Global Action Plan will be submitted for consideration by the 72nd World Health Assembly through the Executive Board at its 144th session. Key challenges highlighted include about 10 million stateless people have been denied access to basic rights such as education, healthcare, employment, and freedom of movement. Addressing efficiently the health needs of people arriving from abroad can be complex, resource intense, and socially disruptive if host countries are not adequately prepared. Formally owed protection in international instruments. In practice, many refugees lack access to health provision as well as financial protection. However, there is limited specific evidence on the health status of migrants. Migrants account for a high percentage of the working age population in low-paid jobs and are more likely to be employed on insecure, temporary, and illegal contracts, contributing to social exclusion, depression, and early onset of cardiovascular diseases. The recommendations made include strengthening health information, surveillance, advocacy, and risk communication to develop informed policies, enhance service delivery for refugees and migrants, and reduce discrimination and stigmatization, and eliminate barriers to health care, and therefore offer the requisite conditions for mobile populations to enjoy a healthy life. It also recommends to reduce communication, language, and cultural barriers to improve access to services by refugees and migrants, and place priority on developing sustainable financial mechanisms to enhance social protection for refugees and migrants. The key areas that the Secretariat is inviting comments and review from the Regional Committee include the following. As part of the consultation, the Secretariat invites the Regional Committee to review the proposed priorities for action by Member States, national and international partners aimed at promoting the health of refugees and migrants. And these include promoting the right to health, advocating for mainstreaming of refugee and migrant health in the global, regional, and country agendas and contingency planning, promoting refugee and migrant-sensitive health policies, legal and social protection and program interventions, enhancing capacity to tackle the social determinants of health, accelerating progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, including universal health coverage, reducing mortality and morbidity among refugees and migrants through short and long-term public health interventions, protecting and improving the health and well-being of women, children, and adolescents living in the refugee and migrant settings, the elderly people, people with disabilities, victims of torture, and populations in vulnerable situations. Improving continuity of care, reducing gender differences in migrant and refugee health status, supporting measures to improve communication and counter xenophobia, strengthening partnerships and intersectoral, inter-country, and interagency coordination and collaboration. The document is hereby submitted to the committee for noting and review. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. The distinguished delegates, do you have any questions or comments?
Zambia.
Thank you, Chairperson. Zambia is honored to make a statement on this agenda item. Zambia welcomes the draft Global Action Plan on the health of refugees and migrants. As a country that has over the years been home to thousands of migrants and refugees, we have some understanding and empathize with the plight of these populations. Zambia's quest towards the attainment of universal health coverage and the SDGs makes our country party to most of the proposed strategic directions for action by member states, as highlighted in the document. Chairperson, assuring the right to health of migrants and refugees calls upon individual countries to improve health systems, healthcare in general, as well as put in place mechanisms that would enable countries react promptly and respond appropriately to health emergencies. This will then make it easier to ensure the upholding of the rights of displaced persons, particularly the most vulnerable among them, as highlighted in the document. However, Zambia notes that there is currently ongoing online consultation with member states on this subject. In this regard, we wish to draw your attention to priority number 10 of the document in circulation, which in this report is summarized under sub-item H of paragraph 21. Chairperson, some issues of sexuality, such as lesbianism, gayism, bisexual, and transgender, mentioned in the background of the online document, remain contentious and might be in conflict with some of our African countries' legislation, values, and culture. Similarly, this follows that even the proposed actions by member states in that regard would need to be clearly understood before assenting to them. Zambia would therefore urge the Secretariat to make available to member states access to the full online document to ensure a wider participation and for them to make informed decisions on this issue. Lastly, the document has highlighted some challenges regarding baseline data. We therefore would be interested to know how certain parameters will be monitored over time, especially bearing in mind that displacement of people occurs due to different factors and circumstances, to ensure actual desirable outcomes are measured appropriately. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Tanzania.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, for according us a privilege of making a contribution on agenda item 18, promoting the health of refugees and migrants in the African region. The delegation of the United Republic of Tanzania commends the Secretariat for bringing up this document for review. The United Republic of Tanzania has been and still is, like several other African countries, hosting refugees from neighboring countries for over a decade, while coping with the health needs of refugees despite our health system being overwhelmed. In this regard, we've gained experience in responding to health needs of refugees, such as containing disease outbreaks affecting refugees and hosting communities, gender-based violence, trauma, and injuries, to mention but a few. It is for this reason the United Republic of Tanzania is supportive of the process of developing the draft Global Action Plan, which will respond to the health of refugees and migrants, while at the same time maintaining the sovereignty of nations in addressing their health needs. We further expect that host countries will continue to be supported by the international community, and that this should be well reflected in the said document. Mr. Chairperson, it is of interest to bring to the attention of the committee, just like a delegation of Zambia did, that we have observed a discrepancy between this document, paragraph 21, items A to J, and the draft 1 online consultation document on the proposed strategic directions for action. Some of the discrepancy observed include different numbering, different wording and content. For example, the online consultation document has 12 proposed strategic directions, while this document has only 10. This document is missing 2 strategic directions which are mentioned in the online document. These are strengthening health monitoring and health information systems, and develop, reinforce, and implement occupational health safety measures, end of quote. We would be glad to receive clarification on this omission, Mr. Chairman. Furthermore, we've noted that there's another proposed priority area which is not reflected in this document, although it is detailed in the online document as a separate priority, 10, called Promote Gender Equality and Empower Refugee and Migrant Women and Girls, on page 22. The content of this section of the online document has controversial issues which have never gained consensus among member states, and therefore we will face challenges in supporting such a plan. We strongly urge as a way forward that efforts should be made to ensure that the final document to be presented for consultation should use agreed terminologies and language and omit controversial issues. Mr. Chairperson, the United Republic of Tanzania delegation will continue to engage in the development of this plan. We are grateful.
Thank you. Uganda.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, Uganda takes note of the draft action plan aimed to promote the health of refugees and migrants, and we commend the Secretariat for bringing the document for review. Uganda will participate and make further contributions on the online consultations on the draft action plan. However, in the meantime, I would like to make the following remarks. Chair, countries should aim at improving the global public health by focusing on the health of refugees, migrants and host populations in an inclusive, comprehensive manner and as part of the holistic efforts to respond to the health needs of the overall population of any given setting. In 2016, as you're all aware, the world leaders signed the New York Declaration that urged countries to ensure refugees have access to available social services and opportunities, and the rest of the world to support refugee hosting countries. Currently, Uganda is the largest refugee hosting country on the African continent. We have one of the most liberal refugee policies where refugees can even compete for job opportunities, work, trade, access land, and live together with host communities and access available social services in our country. However, this has exerted enormous burden on the available social services in the host communities. It is therefore important for the international community to cooperate with host countries to alleviate these challenges. Later this year, the world leaders will convene in New York and Marrakesh to adopt the Global Compact for Refugees and the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration, respectively. These two compacts aim to provide a more equitable manner of managing the global refugee crisis and the migration, respectively, while ensuring respect for human rights. Uganda is already committed to this path, and the Ministry of Health, together with partners, has already developed the health sector integrated refugee response plan, and it has also been costed. The Uganda National Integrated Health Response Plan for Refugees and Host Communities 2018-2023 sets Uganda's health sector's medium-term strategic direction that bridges the humanitarian and development programming priorities, and also implementing strategies for refugees and other displaced persons, and also the host population's response. The plan aims to support actions to minimize vulnerability in ill health and to tackle the social determinants of health by promoting refugees, migrants, and host population ability to access promotive, preventive, curative, and palliative health services. The integrated response plan will focus on the whole district with services targeting refugees and host communities, and in the plan, emphasis is also laid on health systems as opposed to the disease programs to achieve integration. Chair, to ensure the robust evidence and good surveillance systems as proposed in the document with much more disaggregated data, the government of Uganda has integrated refugee data needs into the National Health Information System. We do take note of the document and we support it, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Angola.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Ladies and gentlemen, Angola welcomes the initiative of the Director General and also of the WHO Secretariat, which has promoted this discussion on refugee and migrant health in accordance with Resolution WHA 70.15. We believe there is a need for cooperation among member states with a view to drawing up a draft global action plan on the health of refugees and migrants. We have around 35,000 refugees in our country in the northern Lunda province. They are from Kasai, DRC. Although we have these refugees and the fact that this means greater strain on our health system, and because, of course, they are not part of the planning process of the Ministry of Health, we give them access to basic and advanced health care in the country. Our country supports WHO strategies that aim to integrate refugee and migrant healthcare services in strategic planning and also in operational planning with a view to achieving UHC. We believe this requires the mobilization of domestic and external resources so that these plans are fully funded, and it also means that we need to have harmonization and partnerships that will promote intersectoral collaboration. That means partners, countries, and agencies collaborating together. This is an area of great concern, and all of us need to commit to it. Chairperson, Angola proposes greater involvement of stakeholders so that we can create synergies allowing for us to improve the attention given to refugees and migrants. We also make an appeal that we mobilize more resources and continue to receive support from the WHO so as to increase funding required to meet the immediate needs of these refugees and migrants in the medium and long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Ethiopia.
Thank you, Chair. The Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia extends its sincere appreciation to the Secretariat for bringing this timely agenda to the Regional Committee. Given that migrants and refugees constitute 3% of the global population, it's important their health needs are addressed in fulfilling our agenda in 2030 promises to leave no one behind. Ethiopia would also like to commend the decision of the Executive Board on its 140th session to develop a draft global framework on this timely issue. This is particularly important in light of consultation and negotiation of the Global Compact on Refugees and Global Compact on Migration. Ethiopia appreciates the effort to draw the Global Action Plan on Refugees and Migrants as an essential step to realize commitments of member states and other stakeholders under the two compacts. To that end, we believe that the action plan needs to be aligned with the commitments therein. On a general note, as to the structure of the Global Action Plan, Ethiopia, being a large refugee hosting country, prefers to have two distinct global action plans for refugees and migrants. This is mainly because, one, even though there are commonalities when it comes to health needs and vulnerabilities of migrants and refugees are treated two distinct categories of people. Refugees being treated in a robust international protection regime as compared to migrants. The refugee protection is a well-developed system where there is a comprehensive international instrument that outlines obligations of countries as compared to migrants, which doesn't have a single instrument as to obligation of countries and rights of migrants. The fact that migrants lack robust protection regime that has exposed them to abuses and violations of rights in different circumstances, including denial to basic health services. Second one, in the case of migrants, destination countries retain sovereign power in deciding the entry and or stay of migrants subject to international law. Whereas in case of refugees, every state has the obligation not to return refugees as per the 1951 UN Convention on Refugees and our customary international law. The third one is this inherent distinction has led states to develop two different compacts. It is therefore important to have two action plans aligned with the compacts, considering providing a coordinated UN support to member states in implementing their commitment to compacts. In addition to that, as most of the refugees are hosted by countries like Ethiopia, who have their own developmental challenges and compromised health infrastructure, it is important these countries are supported by international community in line with the principle of burden and responsibility sharing in an action plan that is dedicated to refugee and well synchronized with the Global Compact on Refugees. Ethiopia is both origin and transit and destination country for migrants. A significant amount of Ethiopian migrant workers reside in the Middle East, Southern Africa, and US and European countries. These migrant workers shall not be denied with basic health services, irrespective of their status. We therefore strongly believe that there should be a global framework for migrants' health in view of health as a fundamental human right. With this, Ethiopia considered the information session and looks forward for the draft action plans on the coming assembly. We shall submit a detailed comment in due course of time. I thank you.
Thank you. Now, Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Chair. Zimbabwe would like to thank the Secretariat for the document AFR/RC68/15 on the development of a draft global action plan on the health of refugees and migrants. We think this is very important because this group is a very vulnerable population subject to a lot of abuse and a lot of neglect. And as a health sector, that sensitivity that we are showing is appropriate, but it is also very urgent. Africa has been a source of refugees to other continents, and we must be exemplary here in Africa, at home, on how we treat our refugees. Zimbabwe was actively engaged in the negotiations of the global compacts for refugees and migrants, particularly on the provision of health services. We do have a significant population of refugees who access health services free of charge, because this is, again, a very vulnerable group. In terms of regular migrants, however, we are, to a large extent, a net sending rather than a receiving state. The strategic directions and priorities to promote the health of refugees and migrants outlined in this document are a cog that form the basis of our collective future action, and there should be clarity. I think this is important. There should be clarity on what we seek to achieve. The implementation of the strategic directions will be predicated on national laws, national policies, and the different contexts. For an example, when a country has strengthened its health care capacities, it will be well placed to attain the Sustainable Development Goals as well as universal health coverage, which will benefit the greater population, including refugees and migrants. We have, however, noted differences in the wording and number of strategic directions and actions by member states, and the Secretariat may want to clarify to us this particular issue. For an example, the document under discussion has only 10 priorities. The online consultation on the same has 12 priorities. The language in the document under discussion appears adjusted in some areas, contrary to belief was captured in the online consultations, especially on points A, point F, point G, and point H. As a country, we will continue to participate in the online consultations to add its voice to the build-up to the draft action plan, and we look forward to the final document fully reflecting what the region considers its position. Otherwise, we fully support this initiative. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone takes this opportunity to thank the Secretariat for the draft Global Action Plan for refugees and migrants. We would like to make some comments with regards to refugees. Sierra Leone as a country experienced conflict in 1991 to 2002, and we were refugees in neighboring countries. At the same time, we have acted as host for refugees from Liberia in earlier periods. We have also since experienced the effect of environmental degradation that caused major landslide, major deaths, and with a large number of people that you will call displaced rather than refugees. We note in the document that you have recognized that a large proportion of those are people that are under the age of 18. Basically, we are saying here school-going age. We've also noted that there is a weakness in support for schools and health services to refugees. I want to heighten that we can actually draw a synergy between school and health. I want to highlight here that it is a major opportunity to use the school system and provide school health services for the refugees. Finally, may I say that the points listed out are indeed accepted by Sierra Leone, but we want to highlight that indeed this opportunity should be linked up, wherein we draw a synergy between school provisions, which tend to be the earlier services given to refugees, and use those for health services as well. Otherwise, Sierra Leone lends its support to the draft action plan. Thank you.
Je passe la parole au Congo.
I give the floor to Congo and then to the Secretariat.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Congo would like to congratulate the Secretariat, who, under the leadership of the regional director, has put on the agenda this important issue, because it is quite a significant portion of people that we have as migrants in our regions, and this has been increasing over the years, and of course has been aggravated by terrorism and other actions. We're talking about elderly people, children, a lot of people who are displaced from their countries, within their countries, or are beyond their borders to other neighboring countries. We have had some very sad incidents since 1993 to 1997, and then more recently from the pool to the south of the country. The consequences were quite serious and numerous. We had a rise in the morbidity and mortality related to malaria, as well as TB and HIV. Also, the malnutrition, and this is something that happened in the north of the country, because the north of the country is quite difficult to reach and access because of its situation, and as a result we had a big influx of refugees coming from our neighboring countries such as the Central African Republic. The outbreaks of cholera, monkeypox have been recorded many times in this part of the country, as well as an influx of more refugees. Chair, distinguished delegates, this is the opportunity to look at how we can respond to these extraordinary, urgent emergency situations, particularly bringing together the different countries such as the FAO, WHO, UNHCR, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Defense, and so on, because sometimes we can have military helicopters which will enable us to have teams reaching the areas quickly. Mr. Chairman, the best way forward for the refugees is to make sure that we have a dialogue between the warring parties and bring an end to the conflicts and the crises. I would like to commend the leadership of our head of state, who through dialogue has been able to resolve the problem in the pool area. We also have several high-level international conferences which is dealing with the situation in Libya. And I think that we need to strengthen our partnerships with the governments and also with our technical and financial partners. We also need to look for peaceful means to resolve our conflicts, and we also need to look at schooling of the children, look at primary health care of the refugees, and also the importance of intersectoral approach. We need to have high-level advocacy to enable us to mobilize more resources and also to put into place humanitarian corridors in a multiple way. Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. The Secretariat, do you have something to add here?
Again, thank you very much for the input we received from you, Honorable Ministers. This document was really to guide consultation at the regional level to get input from the regional committees. It's a consultation that is being undertaken at each region this year, again to enrich the input from the different countries. So we are happy to have received all this input, which we will definitely share back to the global level. We do note the issue of the discrepancies that have been described between this document that we have been discussing and the document which is online for consultation. Again, we'll look at the two and harmonize them, but it's a process of consultation that is leading to some of these changes. So we look at them and again harmonize, because this is it's going to be a global document. So each particular region may not necessarily specifically be reflected as a specific one, but it's a document that will have to come and cover basically the requirements of the other. But we do note the concerns that have been described about the gender issues that might be quite difficult in some of the member states in terms of the regulations that they are. So we'll take note of that and bring that to the global level as one of the critical inputs from this meeting. We take note of the importance of having baseline data that can be utilized to help track progress that is being made. Again, this is an area that we are going to be working on, not only as WHO, but also with other agencies, UNHCR, IOM, and others. So we'll use the data that is harnessed from all these different sources to ensure we have baselines that we can use to track the global plan of action. The we appreciate some of the work that is being done already in the countries. I think a country like Uganda, where there is already an integrated health for refugees plan, I think this is very important. And the fact that these should be integrated in the existing policies and strategies, like Zimbabwe said, that will drive the process at country level. We note the need for improving partnerships and intersectoral collaboration that has been mentioned by several member states. It's something that needs to work around different sectors: education, labor, health, and others. Sometimes even defense. So it's important to look at how we can put a mechanism in place that will harness this partnership and strengthen the intersectoral collaboration that goes on. There was call for mobilization of resources that would be required to attend to the increased funding that will be needed to attend to the needs of the refugees and migrants, and the need to support the hosting countries by international partners. And I think this is already something that has been happening, but we need to enhance that so that we can get adequate resources to finance, to help the hosting countries, not to, so that it doesn't jeopardize the health of the inhabitants. There was a suggestion from Ethiopia to propose some distinct actions targeted to refugees and others targeted to migrants because of the nature of the two different categories of populations. So we take note of that, and we will take that forward to the global level for consideration. We also work, of course, on making the document more clear, so the clarity that was requested from Zimbabwe. Yes, we need to know what we expect out of this in order to be able to see how it links very well with the processes that we have at country level. We note the suggestion by Sierra Leone about taking the opportunity of using the school system to provide school health as a vehicle, another vehicle for intervention. And we thank you for that. We will take that as one of the inputs that we will provide from this committee. And Congo, I think, did bring out the issue of increasing high-level advocacy and mediation between warring parties. I think this is very important, and we also take note of that and provide that to the global level for consideration for the global plan of action. So I thank you very much for your input. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think I would just want to re-emphasize the need to continue for our member states to be engaged with the process so that the ultimate product is definitely something that speaks to our needs, because as we have seen, refugees start from internally displaced refugees across borders, and then we are going to have refugees and migrants across oceans. And I think that's the saddest bit when we see that increasing over time. So we really would like to urge our member states from the region to continue to be fully engaged with the process, so that by the time you see the document at the executive board and the assembly, it's beginning to also answer to the needs of the region. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Chers délégués, nous sommes...
Dear delegates, I think that the Secretariat has taken due note of the suggestions that you have put forward, and this will allow the Secretariat to polish up the next version of the document, which will be submitted to the 144th section of the Executive Board in January 2019. And our consultations can continue online. On this note, we can have a finished document. Thank you once again for your contributions. Thank you. But the Secretariat have some announcements before our lunch break, and we will resume at 14:30.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to announce a side event which will take place at 1 p.m. Right after that, some have taken lunch, so at 1 p.m. in room BC12. It's a side event engaging African governments to strengthen national health research systems with complementary international cooperation. So this is BC12. I would like also to remind again that in preparation to your return at the end of the RC, you should please fill in the yellow return form. This form, please. There are still participants who have not filled in this return form. Though this return form helps the Secretariat to schedule your shuttle for the departure to the airport. Those who have already filled in the yellow sheet, the yellow form, they are already scheduled. Please check in the main entrance hall on the list if your departure date and time was correctly registered. Thank you very much.
Merci.
Thank you, and enjoy your meal. Bon appétit. We'll see you back at 14:30.